Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. As I've been mentioning, most of my 250 or so videos here on YouTube have been pretty much scripted, but I've done a few that have been just off the top of my head, and in part because some of the viewers said they like those better, and so I've been doing a few of those lately. And here is one I want to do about work, completely unscripted, frankly, completely unplanned, but perhaps the lack of it being completely organized will be compensated for by the full candor and, as some viewers said, better digestibility of what I have to say. I'm going to pretend I'm just chatting with you here. So, for me, work is, the first word that comes to mind, everything. Being productive, I can't say for sure because I'm not there, but if I had to be a bricklayer or a ditch digger or a plumber or a roofer, I still would work 60 to 80 hours a week as I do now, because I believe that being productive ethically, being an expert at something, whatever it is and spending as many hours as possible doing that is a life better led than somebody spending 40 hours a week on that and the rest on video games, sports watching, sports playing, shopping, chatting. Even though one could argue that chatting yields benefit to the person you're chatting with, but I think taking the time to become an expert at something and spending lots and lots of hours. And of course, it's easier to make the case if I'm talking, for example, about a cardiologist who really took the time to be awesome, and in his or her choice on how he's going to spend hours 40 to 60 during the week, the one who chose to spend hours 40 to 60 seeing more patients so he can save more lives has lived, in my judgment, a life much better led than the one who in hours 40 to 60 was on the golf course, literally and metaphorically. What else do I want to say about work? I am utterly convinced that the standard folly of passion is a mistake, because while we may be passionate about food or hating Donald Trump or the environment or sports or fashion or whatever, our passion is as a consumer of it, as an observer of it, not necessarily the day-to-day working of it. It's like, for example, I love pizza, but if I worked at a pizza place all the time, I would soon stop. I wouldn't be passionate about it. It would be a job. I would do it. I'd try to do it well, but it wouldn't be a passion. And of course, those fields that most people have passions about passions are shared by so many people. All those fields I just mentioned: sports, entertainment, fashion, environment, hating Donald Trump, all the rest of it. There's zillions of people who want to do that, and so many of the jobs are volunteer, and even if they pay decently, the employer can treat you fairly poorly because he knows there's a million people waiting in the wings, salivating to save the whale for the nonprofit. So I'm really convinced that true career contentment comes from things that are more easily gotten outside of those quote cool careers, and that is work that isn't too hard or too easy, a boss that's reasonable and ethical, nice coworkers, a reasonable commute. You can't have a good work life if you're spending an hour and a half each way in a stressful commute. Clearly ethical work, productive, where you're doing a product involved somehow in a product or service that feels worthy. I don't see how anybody can work for a tobacco company or a marijuana company, and which, by the way, I keep writing about this, is much more dangerous than the advocates, which are often supported by big tobacco, would have us believe. The unbiased studies by the National Institute of Health and National Academies of Science are simply scary. I won't go there because it's a side topic. What else about work? It's unfortunate but true that even highly skilled people will be far less successful than they could be if they don't have social skills. If they don't, and this sounds old-fashioned, but that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, is so right. There's so much about that, about really caring much more about what the other person has to say, considering their feelings. How are they going to feel when you say this? Erring on the side of making people feel good, being very measured before you criticize. Doesn't mean you never criticize, but you do it rarely, and usually you do it tactfully, so it's face-saving. You know, that's another unfortunate but true key component in work. Another unfortunate key component of work success is networking. I'm grateful that I don't have to look for work because I know that in finding good work, answering ads, even if you're darn good, is usually not enough. Networking is where it's as old as Methuselah, but good jobs generally disproportionately go to people who are well connected and who are schmoozers, who make time to be with friends all the time, and I wish that pure competence paid, but alas, I guess the human species is not like that. Just like, in an ideal world, we would have communism where everybody would give from their ability and to those who have the greatest need. But it doesn't work because too often people's Maslowian selfish motives take over, and people don't pull their weight. I remember back in the 60s when there were the communes, when I was in college, and they all had espoused socialist and communist ideals, but then when it came time for them to do the dishes, they would often shirk, and they would want more than their share of this or that. So, but I digress. But humankind, unfortunately, is not when we're talking here about work, is not unfortunately purely competence based. I'm deeply concerned both about the power of networking, but even more so, frankly, the accelerating trend to value things other than merit in choosing who to admit to college, graduate school, whom to hire, whom to promote, whom to give plum assignments. Really, race, class, gender, sexual, not so much class, race, gender, sexual orientation, those are factors that whatever benefits of redress occur are, in my judgment, more than compensated by the decline in the quality of people who get hired. It hurts the coworkers who have to be saddled with less competent people. It hurts the customers who are saddled with worse products and services, and indirectly, therefore, all of us. I think that's all I want to say about work, but those are some of my top of mind, most dearly held views about work. As always, I invite you to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down as you see appropriate. You can see you can do that below. There's a share button if you want to share it on social media, and you can also write a comment. In any event, I do thank you for watching. I'm Marty Nemko.